Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me today. I am the Executive Director of Morgan Phillips Korea, and I will be presenting on how to get to the C-suite. Please note that this will be a very flexible presentation. So if you have any questions during my presentation, feel free to chat with me, and I can just stop quickly and just answer any questions. I understand that the audience right now is fairly young. So this is in your future, but it could be much closer than you think. So I just want all of you to, just to think openly, ask any questions, be very honest. And it's a very, right. I'll get into the definition of the C-suite very shortly. And just, let's get started. So I'm going to share my screen now. Here we go. And all right, so again, from Morgan Phillips Group, we're a French HR consulting and executive recruiting firm. And here's a short video about us. Okay, let's see. How do we get to the next? Okay, so just give you an overall view of who Morgan Phillips is. We're in 4 continents. We're in around, the slide says 21 countries, but I believe we're at now around 27 countries in the world. And so, as well, we're also, we're an executive recruiting firm with a group of over 5,000 experts that we call upon when we do consulting. Hold on a second. Sorry, my slide is on another page here. Okay. I'm just going to skip through our introduction because this is basically, so this is our global map and this is our global reach. So what we've basically shown in the other pages is that the way that we're doing executive recruiting nowadays has changed quite a bit. Our global presence, we are in over 4 continents. And as you can see in one of the previous slides, basically, what we're doing right now is we're doing a high-tech global research in terms of executive recruiting. We have very specific industry expertise. So what we're finding in the C-suite, which stands for chief, and I'll explain what the C-suite is later, is that it really takes some domain expertise to find the right executives for the right companies. Also, as you can see here, we're science-based solution with a human touch. And what that means is basically right now, leadership has taken on a new form and a new definition. So here we have what we have here is executive search. We provide professionals that match the global standards. And right now, as we see, globalization is an old term, I believe now. And the world has really become much smaller. And there were even terms used such as glocalization. And in Korea, what we're finding is to become a CEO, CFO, CTO, or to enter the C-suite, it really takes local understanding of the culture, having domain expertise on your topic in your industry, but also to have the leadership and how to motivate your employees in a multicultural environment across the globe. So what our company does is we do talent consulting, executive search, and we also do leadership assessment to find out what the best leadership style is for you and what type of roles your leaders should be playing in your organization. So basically, as you look for jobs in Korea, I think this key is our key differentiators, but it should also be a roadmap to how to succeed. Is, right now in Korea, it's all about being bilingual, understanding the global platform, understanding the cross-cultural approach, and making an in-depth assessment of your pros and cons, build upon your strengths, and build on your weaknesses. So again, in Korea, as a young person, the future is ahead of you, but you really have to understand that it's really a multicultural, multilingual environment that you have to succeed in. These are all the industries that we cover, and with the French Chamber of Commerce, we have leaders in all of these. For example, we have Total, we have, Richemont, and we have many of the luxury in our portfolio. But as you seek positions in Korea, you'll find that there are many leading French companies here. And as I go into my introduction, I actually come from the financial services industry. But the French Chamber of Commerce is a great source to meet these companies, to meet the leaders, and to make connections. And if you participate in the webinars and this career forum such as today, I think this is a great platform for you to be introduced to these industries in Korea. So let me just introduce to you about myself. I have 20 years in the financial industries, and I started my career at Bank of America, ABN AMRO, US Bank in the United States. Then I moved to Korea about 12 years ago, where I worked in KB Hana. Back then it was only KB before the merger. And then the most recent bank I work for is Crédit Agricole. And it is in Korea, we're a branch of about 150 people. And it's actually a very large organization. We also recently, about 4 years ago, the company bought the securities arm for RBS. So it's a very large organization in Korea doing, great servicing the banking needs of not only the French corporates, but also the Korean conglomerates and the Korean government, as well as doing debt underwriting, project finance, and trading. Most recently, I work for the American Chamber of Commerce, which is sort of a sister organization to the FKCCI. So I'm very well aware of how strong these platforms are. And there I did a lot of, government advocacy, working with the leaders of the American companies. My career comes from an IT background. Then I went into sales and trading, and then I became a relationship manager, is where I learned most of my soft skills. So if you look on the right, these are, just two pictures. The one on the left is of me at the chamber, and then the one on the right is me in front of about 8 TV screens trying to make money off the markets. But basically, you're always moving forward, always progressing. And that's my message to you is, to reach the C-suite, it's to the person that never stops, never gives up. And I know that sometimes it can be very discouraging, but I think the next box on the left-hand side on the bottom is find the right mentors and the leaders. Like I said, the FKCCI is a great platform to meet the industry leaders in the French companies. And I had some great mentors. For example, at Crédit Agricole, our CEO was Jean-Pierre Trunel. He was on the board of directors of the FKCCI. Very, knowledgeable, very sharp individual that really shaped me to who I am today. Really taught me how to deal with leaders and how to move forward in the banking industry. And so somebody asked earlier, what is the C-suite? So C-suite stands for chief, and it could be CEO, CFO, CIO, CMO. Many, many acronyms out there. So this is the very popular Squid Game. What is it? 456 or 256 people are vying for that top prize to get that, tens of billions of Korean won. So the top prize is 400 and what, like some billion Korean. Anyway, it's around 30 million euros. But the point is that many people are vying for that one spot. And that's why it's called the C-suite, because there's only one chief. You never find chiefs, executive officers. It's never a plural. It's that one spot. It's a highly coveted position, and many, many people are vying for it. Sometimes you're seeing the competition. Sometimes you are not. And if you're fortunate enough to meet people who are mentors and who've made it there, you should really try to learn as much as you can from them. So on the left-hand side, what you can see here is the many different C roles that I found on the Bank of America website, a bank I used to work for. You can see there's many types of C: Chief Risk Officer, Chief Human Resources Officer, Chief Marketing Officer, Chief Executive Officer. The C-suite is the top position of that one business line. And what you need to know about the C-level job is that it's the top executive or the C, and it's not just that one spot, but the person that got there probably has a very diverse background getting to that one top spot. So if you look on the web, you'll find the C-suite journey, how to become a CEO. And you'll see that there's many, many roadmaps out there. This is a very basic one from Wall Street Mojo. And it's just, a lot of them will actually get a top school MBA or get a top school education, start at a junior executive, build a team, work with a team, manage a team, get the responsibility, start planning, and then you finally reach the C-suite. Well, as we all know in life, if everybody could follow a roadmap like this, it would be very easy to become a CEO of an organization. So it takes very meticulous planning, and it's a very competitive market. So let me just show you a short video. So that video was, oh, sorry, okay, it's working. Okay, yes. So am I still sharing the screen? Okay.
Yes, you are.
Okay, great. So as you saw on the video, it seems like everyone thinks that the straight line is the quickest way to the goal. In fact, it isn't. That's what the video shows. And so where did this go? But before I move on how to get to the C-suite, I want to talk to you about a very famous management, a person who's writing about management right now and leadership, Simon Sinek. Excuse me. And Simon writes about why. So it's all about, you should first, before you say, before I want to become a CEO or a top leader or the top dog in an organization, you should ask yourself, why do you want to be there? So we should always start with why, because people don't buy what you need, they buy why you do it. So Apple, he uses Apple in his presentation, and you can find this on YouTube. It's a very famous TED video. And basically it says what? What is the iPhone, which is a smartphone? How? It's made in a factory, and it's made with, top of the line, semiconductors, blah, blah, blah. And they have just in time, whatever. But it's really the why. Why do people buy Apple? And again, you should always examine yourself and say, why do I want to become a CEO, CMO, or the top? And it's always great to be the best at something, but you should also think about the leadership aspects as well. So a lot of people will say, well, I want to become a CEO because if you look here, I believe this is from the Economic Policy Institute, a CEO, and I think the data is actually from maybe the US, but the average CEO in the US is paid 320 times as much as a typical worker in the industry. You look at Elon Musk, you look at Steve Jobs, well, you look at all the top CEOs. For example, when Bill Gates was the CEO of Microsoft, it talks about great fortune, right? And everyone says, I want to become a CEO because, well, then I can buy so many things and I can, it's a shortcut to wealth. But that's why I always say, think about Simon Sinek. Why do you want to become a leader? Why do you want to become the best in your industry or the top in your organization? And many young people will sometimes chase wealth. And so when I studied philosophy in college and I read The Apology by Socrates, one thing that always stood out to me was wealth does not bring excellence, but excellence brings wealth, and all things good to man, both individually and collectively. So it's very easy to say, being the top dog gets me the top dollars. But at the end of the day, you have to have other aspects in that job, in that role, or more the why you want to do that. There's a recent study by an economist, and he found that, this is again in the US on US dollars, but if a person made around 75,000 US dollars a year, which is around 65,000 euros, 70,000 euros a year, their basic needs are satisfied, and the marginal utility of happiness decreases as they make more money. So whether you're making $1 million or 75,000, you're not going to be that much more happy. But I'll let you know after I make my first million how much happier I am, though. Okay, so before you make that pursuit to the C-suite, I want to talk to you about the Peter Principle. And in the 1980s, when IBM was all the roar, Dr. Lawrence J. Peter took about, I think, 200 some IBM employees, and he looked at them as they were promoted. And the Peter Principle basically says that people are promoted to their highest level of incompetence. In other words, what happens is people are promoted due to their technical expertise or domain expertise. And they're really good programmers. Back then, IBM was a programming company, not like a consultancy now. But they were really good programmers, and IT guys were being promoted to managers, but they were miserable as managers. And this is sort of goes back to what Simon is saying, and find out the why. If it drives you to lead people, motivate people, and to create a vision for an organization, then a CEO is the right role for you. But if you really like that, that niche business, and you like that domain expertise, then you should really re-examine your career aspirations. So again, this is from a Harvard Business Review. Once people reach the C-suite, technical and functional expertise matters much less than leadership skills and a strong grasp of business fundamentals. I added the much, but basically, as you get promoted for your domain expertise, at the end, leadership is all about understanding how to drive the business forward in the regulatory environment and having the leadership skills to motivate your employees. In other words, the skills that help you climb to the top won't keep you there at the top. And that, again, is the Peter Principle, is that if you're getting promoted for your technical expertise, it's not going to be those programming skills that make you the CEO of an IT company. It'll be the leadership skills and the soft skills and the relational skills. So somebody asked, what is the C-suite? Well, there's many different types of Cs, and I've only outlined a couple here. So first we have the CIO, and as a lot of you are in engineering or in computer science, is the Chief Information Officer. And what you'll find nowadays, back around, in the it's a little bit embarrassing, but when I was in college in the 1990s, we found that, it was just the start of the internet. And I was actually starting as an electrical engineer, and technology was all the rage, but it was much different than it is today. But the CIO now has less concern with technology, and it's more focused on gaining the competitive advantage through technology. And now they're called they transform the organization. So they're called hybrid CIOs now, that take a holistic system that supports global growth. Basically, a CIO's role is not just to manage the information technology of a company, but to move it forward and to gain a competitive advantage using that technology. Secondly, you have a Chief Marketing Officer, which is a CMO. So it's no longer a sales silo and a marketing silo, and they're competing for resources internally. Again, it's a hybrid. It's the chief commercial officer. So it's a person that deals both with sales and marketing and branding to increase the competitive advantage again of the company. So a chief marketing officer is, having to worry about pricing as well as brand management, research, and communication. So all of these things will drive the revenue of the company. CFO. So coming from a banking background, I'm very familiar with CFOs. I had, many CFOs were my clients, such as in Total in Korea. And but they're no longer bean counters. So if you look on the right, there's a picture from a very famous movie. And it was, my father was fond of saying you need three things in life: a good doctor, a forgiving priest, and a clever accountant. And the first two I've never had much use for. In other words, the CFO is very integral, managing the funds. And nowadays with M&A activity on the rise and fundraising and, special purpose vehicles and all these different various ways to, fundraise and to increase your profitability and to tap into the capital markets and this near zero rate environment, the CFO is playing a very key role in increasing the competitive advantage. So again, that will be the CFO. And then this is one that probably many of you, I don't know if you're familiar with, but there's a supply chain management officer. And when I was starting my career, this was almost non-existent. This was actually a new major at the time in the 90s. And but basically a SCMO will link the process end-to-end of planning, procurement, manufacturing, logistics. Again, globalization is old news. And the world is connected, not just by IT, but through supply chain. And we have just-in-time manufacturing. That was 20 years ago already. So there's the manufacturing world and connecting all of it. For example, you can get a coupon delivery within hours in front of your door. So the supply chain has become that much more important. And all the craze now in real estate is data centers and logistics centers. So logistics really is very important, and it's connecting the world as well as the products and the consumer today. And when we get to the very top spot, we have the CEO. And in the US, we call it football, but that is actually American football. And there's something called a quarterback. And I think in basketball, it's like the point guard. Maybe it's like the center in soccer. But in soccer, there's not really a exact analogy. But the quarterback in football basically manages all of the players and leads them, tells them what to do, and is sort of the brains behind the operation. And that's sort of what the CEO is. And before, everyone just thought a CEO was someone who would lead the organization, get to the bottom line, and maybe cut costs, cut employees if needed. But now it's really changed where you need a strong communicator. The CEO should be empathetic and should be able to build trust and collaboration inside the corporation. Nowadays, there's something called the Great Resignation across the world. People are resigning from their jobs, especially if the organization does not have the same values as them. And Simon Sinek has a very recent book called Leaders Eat Last. And the reason he wrote this book was because he went to, I believe, to the Marines in the US, and he noticed that amongst all the troops, the general would stand at the back of the line and he would eat last. And he would ask them, I would think that a person in command would go to the front of the line and get the best portions when it's the hottest. And what they said was, well, it's really the troops on the line, and it's the junior troops that are really risking their lives for us. And that's why they stand at the back of the line and they eat at the very last place during any of the meals. So again, it's very important as a leader to embrace this while leading change and while leading growth in the organization. So just to recap, key factors are, get the right timing, have a diverse, broad experience. Don't just think that there's a shortcut. Sometimes a straight line is not always the fastest. Be a transformation expert. IT is not just about managing the information technology, but transforming the organization, and really understand the cultural fit for yourself and for the country or the geographic domain or the industry expertise, especially as you're in Korea. Culture and language are going to be it could be one of the greatest things that work for you, and sometimes it could work against you. And again, thank you very much, and that's all I have for you.
Thank you so much, Gene. If you have some questions in the chat, don't hesitate to ask them. Now is the time.
Okay, if there's no questions, we can wrap up the session. Thank you, everyone, for your time. And I have my business card up here if you want to email me. I'm always open for emails or telephone calls.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jean. If we receive more questions in the chat, maybe later we can ask later and send it directly to you.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
And we can share the replay as well.
Thank you so much for your insights. It was very interesting. And for the chat, you can stick around as we have another presentation by RDI at 4. We'll be right back.